Hello and welcome to Home Media Minefield presents Let's See What's Out There, an entertainment live stream or video stream and podcast currently focused on Star Trek Strange New Worlds, which is available to watch on Paramount Plus. My name's Keith Isles, and as ever for this stream, I'm joined by
Pete Mealy.
And we are both film and television enthusiasts. And in tonight's episode, we are going to have a spoiler-filled conversation about pretty much the entire second season, probably, but specifically episode 10 of season 2, which is the finale, entitled, I don't know how to pronounce this, whether it's Hegemony or Hegemony. I don't know, depending on where you're from.
Wow. I would have said hegemony.
Hegemony. I mean, I know what it means. It's like leadership and whatever, but in terms of the correct pronunciation of that, I'm not entirely sure. I did think, is it hegemony? I don't know. I think it was mentioned in Enterprise, wasn't it, originally?
They say it, don't they?
Yeah, they talk about the Orions.
No, they say it in this episode.
Do they? Oh, maybe they do. Yeah, I don't know. I've only watched it once. So there you go.
I think they refer to the Gorn hegemony.
Ah, right.
Instead of
hegemony.
Instead of the Gorn empire or whatever. Yeah.
Fair enough. Well, yeah. Hegemony, however, let us know. In fact, I'm going to use that opportunity, actually, if I may, just for a moment, as this is the last episode. So if you're new, if you've just found us, whether it's months down the line or whether this is just aired, then welcome. Please do check out other content that we have on this channel. And if you find any value or entertainment or anything in this, please do consider giving us a like, hitting that thumbs up, subscribing to the channel, and hitting the bell icon means you'll get notified as and when new content drops, because it can be sporadic. But also on that, I do want to ask, we have some views, not mega views, but we do have some views each week, but never seem to get any comments or anything. And I would just like to know whether or not, what you think of the format. Does this work for you? Is it educational in any way? Are there bits that don't work? Any sort of feedback like that would be appreciated. The other reason I want to know this is, obviously, quite a bit of time and effort goes into this. And as me and Pete have always said, it's not about views, because we would be having these conversations anyway. We've just put it into a format and decided to put it out there on YouTube or via your podcatcher or whatever. But we're considering possibly doing a season retrospective roundtable with some guests in the coming weeks, and wonder whether that would be of interest to anyone. The other thing is, as one door closes, another one opens. So we've lost Star Trek probably for some time, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But next week, while we're recording this, Star Wars Ahsoka is being dropped on Disney Plus. And the question is, we usually run a similar format show, which I co-host with Graham Williams. I know Graham is keen to do it, but I want to know whether there's any appetite for that out there. Is that something that you want us to do every week or not? If you wouldn't mind putting something in the comments, that would be really helpful, and I'd really appreciate it. I got that out of the way, but I mean, it is because it's the last week that we're doing.
Good. Yeah.
As I mentioned, there is a bit of a format to the show. So we do summarize the episode with spoilers. We talk a little bit about the behind the scenes. We have a bit of fun looking at Easter eggs and connections to other Trek, predictions and speculations on where we think it's going. And then we really get into our thoughts, where it becomes very interactive. And myself and Pete, discuss what we liked, what we didn't like, what worked, what didn't, and get really down to nitpicky level. So with all that ramble out the way, Pete, for the last time this season, hit it.
Gabe Walker and his girlfriend Jessie Deegan are dispatched to rescue their friend Hal Tucker and his girlfriend Sarah after Hal suffered a knee injury and stranded them on a peak in the Colorado Rockies. As they try to rescue Sarah, part of her harness breaks. Although Gabe is initially able to grab her, her gloved hand slips out and she falls to her death. Hal blames Gabe for Sarah's death, and Gabe is overcome with guilt, taking an extended leave. I'm sorry, that's the 1993 movie Cliffhanger. Star Trek. The Cayuga and Nurse Chapel are visiting a planet helping a non-Federation colony when the Gorns show up, and that doesn't go well. A garbled message reaches the Enterprise, and she boldly goes, only to be told to back off by the Federation and the Gorn. Captain Batat was last seen on the planet, so it might be good for her. But Nurse Chapel was last seen on the Cayuga, which has been blown into lots of tiny little pieces and one large saucer section. Oh no, will Nurse Chapel be okay? I wonder whatever happens to Nurse Chapel. If only we had some idea of what her storyline would be in the future. Anyhow, the Gorn have put up a sensor and communication block, so everyone is in the dark. Pike, La'an, Erica, and Kirk, no, not that Kirk, the other one, go down to the planet by pretending their shuttle is space debris and having a rough ride down. Once on the planet, they only find a few baby Gorn, Captain Batal and a plucky engineer with an accent, Montgomery Scott. Scotty has an idea about how to disguise shuttles as Gorn ships as they get to work on that, but we find out that Captain Batat has Gorn eggs implanted. And right about now, we remember that Captain Batal doesn't show up in the menagerie, does she? Meanwhile, back on the Enterprise, they come up with a plan to use the saucer section to knock out the Gorn signal jammer. Spock goes onto the Cayuga wreckage, finds Chapel. Hey, she survived. And they successfully knock out the thing. So then the Enterprise beams up Pike, Spock, Scotty, Batel, and her Gorn eggs. Scotty meets up with his old Professor Pelia to do their thing. Batel and Chapel go to the sick bay to do their thing. Pike and Spock go to the bridge and find that the rest of the colonists and the rest of the landing party have been beamed up to the Gorn ships. And then the Gorn ships start shooting, and the Federation says to back off, and everyone looks at Pike. But we'll have to wait till next season to find out what happens.
Oh, Pete, you made my day with that.
Yeah, I'm glad. I know it's a little bit of an oddball, but I really wanted to make a cliffhanger joke.
I like it. I always find your recaps very amusing. So thank you for that. I never know what to expect. But with that out of the way, it's time to have a look at this week's Above the Line credits with Make It So. Alrighty, so this week's episode was written by showrunner, producer Henry Alonso Myers, who we have talked about on previous episodes because he has done a number of these this season. So he had the main writing credit here. And this episode was directed by Maya Varillo. Now, we have probably on the podcast version that we did a few years back, spoken about her work because she has previously directed episodes of Star Trek Discovery and Star Trek Picard, and did also direct an episode of Strange New Worlds last season. But she did the Children of the Comet episode, season 1, episode 2, and obviously this is her first episode this season. But she has
what happens in season 1, episode 2?
Sorry?
Do you remember what happens in season 1, episode 2?
Oh, God, you put me on the spot. No, I don't, Pete.
They try to pretend like Uhura and Spock are going to die.
Oh, yes.
Mission.
Yes.
Anyway.
Yes.
Never mind. Sorry. That's my pet peeve.
We'll get there. In terms of directing, credits going back to 2015 with Graceland, CSI, Cyber, Limitless, Person of Interest, Elementary, Prison Break, Preacher, Lethal Weapon, Gotham, Blind Spot, Salvation, Titans, Hawaii Five-0, MacGyver, Magnum PI, Star Trek Picard, Star Trek Discovery, Clarice, SWAT, Blood and Treasure, and Star Trek Strange New Worlds. So absolutely loads of television episodic credits to her name there. So that's fantastic. And then I thought I'd give a special shout out to, we're always talking about Jeff Russo's wonderful theme that he's done for this show. And I still maintain that I think it's probably the best theme since Voyager, by Jerry Goldsmith in my book for the show. But the rest of the music, all the incidental music, and pretty much every episode is scored in this show, and in most cases really well, is done by Namli Melumad. I think that's how you pronounce that. Namli Melumad. I'm struggling with pronunciations today. Who is the composer for this show? Now, I thought it deserved a shout out, most definitely. She's been composing on short films since the late teens, 2018. Was the composer for Absentia TV series from 2019 to 2020, doing 20 episodes of that. Also on the TV series Dead End, Anchor Point, The Woman Across the Street from The Girl in the Window, which was a mini series that was on, I think, Netflix. She also did the score for Thor: Love and Thunder, and has been the composer for the TV series Star Trek Prodigy. So, as well as doing all these 20 episodes now of Strange New Worlds. So I thought it deserved a shout out for this season. So there you go.
Amazing.
Any comments, Pete?
I think I made my snarky comments about similarities already.
Oh, right. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, do you have a drink, Pete?
I don't have a drink.
Oh, dear. Do you want to go and get one?
No, it'll be too long.
Okay. Time for some tea, Earl Grey, hot. There you go. If you believe the sound effect, you've now got a drink. So this is just a little bit of a fun section before we get down to the serious stuff, where we talk about references, Easter eggs, all of that sort of stuff. I always let Pete go first because I've prepared a slide. But Pete, have you got anything that sort of stood out to you in this episode?
I'm so sorry. This is references, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I just started thinking about my future predictions. I'm sorry.
Ah, right. Yes.
And I was like, wait, no, that's not right. Okay. First up, the idyllic Federation colony set sort of in the 50s style really reminded me of TOS era colonies and federations that they pop into, set around, various cultures and whatnot. So I thought that was amusing. I guess
interestingly, obviously back in the 60s, they used to have to use the backlot, the studio backlot. So often, places would copy, some era of human history or whatever. Apparently in this case that was actually a redress of the set from Reacher, which is filmed in Canada as well, and they obviously use that. Of course, it's a great money saving method, bearing in mind they do pile quite a lot of money into these shows with the sets and the visual effects and whatever. So wherever they can do a bottle episode or save money, that they do so. So yeah, I think that was kind of the thinking behind that.
And now that you say that, yeah, that's absolutely the town from Reacher. Yeah. Absolutely is. Absolutely.
Which was a great miniseries, by the way. Yes.
Yeah. They referenced the singing episode from last week. So there's a little Easter egg.
We were hoping it didn't really happen, but yes, it did.
Oh yeah, no headcanon available now, right?
Mm.
And I think we all know that Scotty has appeared finally. So references to the original series and that great episode of Next Generation.
Yes, which is something I want to have a chat about down the line. Yes.
His accent, yeah.
No. Just the thing about legacy characters in general. But
okay, great.
Cool. But did you spot anything else in particular?
Not really. No. Show me what I missed.
Well, no, not much really from my point of view. So yes, you've obviously mentioned Scotty there. This is I guess the third official actor to play Scotty on screen, although obviously James Doohan's son, Chris Doohan, did an amazing job, I think, in Star Trek Continues, which anyone who listens to this regularly knows that to me that's headcanon, most definitely. But following on from James Doohan and Simon Pegg, obviously Martin Quinn, I think is the name of this actor. He's the first actual Scottish actor to play Scotty, because obviously, famously James Doohan was Canadian, and of course Simon Pegg is English. But yeah, we will when we get into our nitpick section. I'll get a little bit into some sort of thoughts there, but I'll save that for now. Obviously, Spock doing the spacewalk kind of reminded me a little bit of Star Trek: The Motion Picture, and a little bit of Star Trek: First Contact as well, when they're walking out on the saucer section, when Worf and Picard are walking out on that. And obviously when Spock goes into V'Ger in Star Trek: The Motion Picture, I was, getting a few of those vibes there with Spock in a, in EV suit in zero gravity and whatever. We get some massive references to aliens, particularly Alien 3.
Oh yeah,
where the Gorn gets in Batel's face and obviously backs off because it realizes she's impregnated. Almost exactly the same shot and everything as from David Fincher's Alien 3. And the Gorn now with tails and everything. There's quite a lot of alien reference and iconography in it, I feel. We also had a saucer section crashing, which is part Star Trek Generations and part Star Trek Beyond, both of which feature the saucer section of a starship crashing to a planet.
I should have caught that. Yeah,
crashing to a planet's surface. Yeah. What else? We've got I'm trying to remember what the name of it is, but there was the Keystone pendant that Pike was given by Batel earlier in the season.
Ancient Mariner or something. Yeah,
something like that. Yeah, I can't remember what the exact phrase was for it, but that name was for it. But the fact that a nice bit of continuity, the fact that that's referenced and used here as well, and then obviously, we haven't really had a cliffhanger quite like this in some years. This seemed very reminiscent almost of the cliffhanger, the most famous one being obviously at the end of Best of Both Worlds, the to be continued, Mr. Worf fire. I don't think it was quite as dramatic as that, but I certainly got some vibes of that from this. So that was it. I'm sure there's other things. Again, please put in the comments if we missed anything. I'm sure we probably have, but those are sort of, I tend to work more personally on the visual stuff. I tend to get more than the if a particular planet is referenced or a line of dialogue or something, I tend to pick up more on the visual ones personally. But I know they're layered throughout these things, which is awesome. So, Pete, anything to add?
Yeah, I can't. No, I should have picked up those alien references and the saucer section. You're right. Yeah, good call. Good call.
Fair enough. Are you seeing any lights at this point through the show?
Yeah, there are 4 lights.
All right. Have you got anything, Pete, in terms of what do you think is going to happen next season? Any speculation? In some respects, we should probably have done it this week after the nitpicks. but anyway, that's our format. So,
yeah, I think that we got, Batal is going to die and Pelia is going to die. Is what I'd say. Yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah. The only true prediction that I've got is this. Because whereas it was excruciating to have to wait 3 months after the end of the Best of Both Worlds Part 1 to get the Best of Both Worlds Part 2, and every other Star Trek cliffhanger that followed, you had to wait mere months to get it. In this case, the reality is with what's going on in Hollywood at the moment with writers and actors strikes, still not resolved at the point that we're recording this. And the length of time these productions tend to take, I think we are looking at least a year before we get a resolution to this story.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a, yes, there's going to be other Star Trek, the final season of Discovery is in the can, and that will screen next year. Plus, there's more Lower Decks and other bits and pieces, but this isn't even in production yet and can't be. And I'm thinking we're looking a year from now at the very earliest in my prediction, before we get a conclusion to this, which is kind of, and obviously they probably haven't written it yet either, right? So
I don't think so. They might have started writing this episode. Yeah. I mean, the next episode, right? You'd hope they write them in somewhat the rough same time frame.
Yeah. Some of my other predictions, as it were, I guess more go into the discussion that we'll have about the overall episode. So shall we draw a line?
Let's draw a line.
Sorry, did I cut you off? Were you going to go, the line must be drawn here?
No, I was going to tell you to do it. So thank you.
Okay. Right. Well, this is where we discuss the episode, talk about what we like, what we didn't like, thoughts, all of that sort of stuff. Pete, you go first.
Okay. Oh, I just closed my notes, but it's all right. I'm going to freehand it until I get it. All right. So first and foremost, I think I've complained enough about this, but it is absolutely stupid to put people in peril when we know they're not going to die, right?
Agreed.
And so they've put Nurse Chapel in this will she, won't she die? And it's like, no, this is 0 stakes. It's really dumb. Second, I know it bothered me this week more than it has in other Star Treks, and I don't know why, but it has, is that the absolute like ridiculousness of not being able to communicate in one direction, but able to communicate with the Federation
Yeah.
at supersonic speeds, even when the whole point of the singing episode was to try to communicate with the Federation faster. And I was like, I don't know, they seem to be doing real-time comms anyway. What do you mean faster, right? Like, that's just dumb. Anyway, that annoyed me this time. Obviously, having a cliffhanger really, really annoyed me. And I suppose that I should let that go. Um, I know I got to let that go, but it annoyed me. And finally, like on, I guess, an up note is that they're starting to talk about the Gorn more as, like something to engage with, something to, or maybe is it sapient? Sentient species. Sorry, a sentient species versus just a monster, right? Or like a virus that there's no reasoning with. And there I'm like, oh, okay, that's starting to make it more interesting for me. But I don't know how that's going to go. And also, I don't know how that plays into the pre-existing canon. I'm sorry, I've been busy and I hadn't had a chance. I really wanted to watch the TOS episode with the Gorn again to refresh, because it feels like we are changing timelines here.
I think we have. Yeah. I mean, it definitely doesn't fit with the continuity of that episode at all. And that's not just the design of the Gorn, that's everything about them not knowing the species, not recognizing them, all of that sort of thing. Bearing in mind that's Kirk and Spock and Scotty and everybody. So it's problematic from that. The look, and I noticed that what they've kind of done with the look is they've sort of evolved the version that we had in the Enterprise Mirror Universe episode, where we had that featured a Gorn, and obviously that was a CG Gorn back then, rather than a man in a rubber suit. That they did make blink in the remastered versions. That was one of the changes, when they went through the mid 2000s and they went and redid all the visual effects, external effects and whatever. One of the things, the only things they changed about the creatures was they did make the Gorn blink in that arena episode. But cool. Any other, or shall we just break some of it down and?
Yeah, let's get in. I did want to ask you the question.
Okay.
Because as an American, I have no ear for this. But is Scotty's accent right, or does he sound like an American doing a Scottish accent?
No. He's Scottish. The actor is Scottish.
The actor is Scottish.
That is absolutely 100% an authentic accent. I think what it is, we're so used to hearing the non-Scottish actors doing the accent that it might seem a bit jarring. And I mean that with the utmost respect in the nicest possible way. But
it was absolutely a little bit jarring for me, right?
I mean, I've not seen Martin Quinn interviewed or anything, so I've not heard his natural voice, but I know that he is literally the first actor who's actually Scottish to play Scotty. Now, whether he's playing up the accent to fit the character, I don't know. That's a very good question. But
okay.
In fact, while we're talking about Scotty, then let's just okay. So I've got a bit of a nitpick here, right? just in so much as this guy seemed a little young to me to be Scotty, because Scotty is supposed to be 11 years older than Kirk, right? So Scotty at this point would be about 38. And that actor, it worked when it was Simon Pegg, sort of, apart from the fact it was Simon Pegg. But the age difference sort of. Now, Kirk in this is supposed to be 27, the Kirk that we've had this season, right?
Yeah.
Which is quite frightening, because Paul Wesley himself is actually 41, would you believe? Definitely does not look 41. That makes him older than William Shatner was when he was playing Kirk in the original series, and older than Chris Pine was playing Kirk from this sort of same era in those Star Trek movies. So, yeah, he is actually quite a lot older than he looks. But,
wow,
Scotty is still supposed to be, in actual canon, if we're going to get all nitpicky about it, 11 years older, which would, as I said, place him around 30, 37, 38 at this point. And that guy looked very young to me.
Yeah, he looks like a baby.
Yeah, so that's that kind of thing. The other thing, there are some things, I've got some notes which I almost feel that maybe we should leave for the round table if we do one, because some of them are more broad about Star Trek and Strange New Worlds in general. So maybe I'll park some of this. But with regards to this episode, then let's go there. One of the things that bugged the hell out of me, and it's kind of another level to what you're talking about characters that we know the futures of being in no real peril or whatever when they're put in these situations. But I have a real problem with the only person that survived the whole of the saucer section of that ship was Chapel. That to me was absolute nonsense. Absolute nonsense. And it bothered the shit out of me. It really did. I was like, this is so unlikely and makes no sense. It is so coincidental that of all the souls, all the hundreds of souls on that ship, there's not someone who's just injured or whatever, but the only one who's absolutely fine, alive and well is Nurse Chapel. And we see bodies all around her in the sick bay area where she was dead. Yeah. And I thought, really? I just thought that I don't know. Again, I know we give the writing quite a hard time, and I think it's probably because we're sort of creative people ourselves that would only love the opportunity. And I understand the production reasons. They would have to hire more actors and costumes and pay more people and take up more screen time. And
no, they wouldn't have
reasons. But even if there had been some sort of line of dialogue to say, we scanned the ship and this is hard to believe, but you're actually the only survivor or something. But the fact that they don't even address it, and Spock go floating off, and anyone else that was alive on that saucer section will just die. I didn't like that. That annoyed me.
You're right. I forgot that they crashed it into the planet. So all those people who might have survived are definitely dead.
Yeah. Another thing with regards to writing is I thought the whole, again, I get it from a character and story point of view. We want to use our leads and all of this sort of thing. And obviously Spock is emotionally connected to Chapel, even though he's, obviously not supposed to have his emotions, but we know he is. But unless I missed it, I've only watched it the once, but the explanation about why he was the only one on the ship that could do that mission, there was no logic to quote Vulcans there. There was no logic to that whatsoever.
No.
And again, I just thought they could have come up with something, some sort of techno babble as to why you know, nobody else could do that. So that bothered me. I mean, there's a lot I like in this episode, but I'm just getting out the things that really annoyed me to start with. So, you know, Scotty's age sort of bothered me, even though it's nice to see him and all that. That bothered me. The Chapel being the only survivor really bothered me. And then the other thing that I didn't like, in-ship beaming. I didn't think that was a thing yet, right? Why did they have those weapons beamed directly into the conference room? Why couldn't they have had, you know, some ensigns or something wheel it in or something to the conference room? It bothered because they spent the money on the visual effects. They could have spent that money on a couple of extras in uniform. You know, it just annoyed me because, again, if we're getting nitpicky about continuity, I know you hate the fact that the rooms and everything seem so
gigantic,
but you know, the in-ship beaming, I didn't think that was a thing at this point in Star Trek. Or have I got that wrong? I don't know. It's just something that kind of bothered me.
It's interesting. So I feel like Enterprise established that beaming cargo, right, was fine.
Right.
And so I have less of a problem with it beaming cargo than if they had like in-shipped beamed people around, right? Yeah.
Although I think they've done that in one of the episodes.
Oh, did they?
I don't know. Anyway, whatever.
Anyway.
That's the game. Those are nitpicky things.
Those are nitpickies.
But overall, I quite enjoyed this episode. I thought there was some, you know, I kind of liked it. I liked the zero gravity stuff. I liked, again, we had the aliens vibe with the sort of motion trackers, you know, finding when the Gorn are coming in. I mean, yes, it's a bit of a horror episode, which is maybe why I enjoyed it. But after what we had last week, this to me was a breath of fresh air again. I was like, okay, we're back to, you know, some serious stuff again.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, it's serious stuff. We're sort of circling around the themes that have come up occasionally in this season about, you know, Pike and responsibility and command and leadership styles, right?
Yeah.
I think it's interesting that you know, one of our criticisms of past episodes have been that Pike has not been displayed as a decisive leader, right? A strong leader. And the very last bit of this is everyone turning to him and saying, "What do we do?" Right?
Yeah.
But interestingly enough, we are going to end with this season with you and I disagreeing because I kind of hated this episode. I mean,
really? Okay.
Yeah, I think part of that is just my general distaste for cliffhangers,
Right.
and so especially when, you know, like it doesn't have the stakes of Locutus, right? It doesn't have the stakes embedded of it of some of the previous Star Trek two-parters. Instead, you know, like I kind of know that the ship isn't going to get destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
Spock, Scotty, Uhura, or Kirk, Chapel, we're all going to make it out just fine.
Yeah.
Right? Pike is going to make it out. He might not be fine, but he's going to make it out.
Yeah.
And then everyone else that we've never met before, they're probably...
Yeah, well, I mean, of the ones that got beamed away, you know, we know Sam Kirk is going to be okay for at least for a few more years, right? So we know he's going to be okay. You know, the only characters, the only regular characters there that we don't know the future of is Ortegas. We don't know what her future is. Lan,
yeah,
Noonien Singh. We don't know what her future is. Captain Patel, who we thought was gone anyway.
when we remember that she exists. Yeah.
We, in terms of who's on the ship, not the ones who got beamed away, but who's on the ship, Una Chin Riley, number one, we actually don't know her future, because this is something I hear come up a lot. So obviously we're only a very small channel doing this, and I think we admitted in our first episode that even though we're Star Trek fans, we're not absolute aficionados with encyclopedic knowledge of all things Trek, right? So I want to say that up front. Of course we'll make mistakes, but after we've done our reviews, I usually listen to a lot of much larger Star Trek channels and get their views. And one thing I hear loads of them say all the time that they absolutely get wrong is that the cage comes after this, and it doesn't. The cage took place in the original 5-year mission 5 years before this, hence why Pike references it on numerous occasions. We had the episode where he went back to visit back to the planet. It was a Discovery episode, but he went back to visit her and all this. So those people who say, oh well, we know that number one's going to be in the cage, are kind of missing the point, because this takes place after the cage.
Yeah. So number one isn't in the menagerie.
Exactly.
So, right? Like, that's the real thing, right? The next thing that we've seen for some of these characters is the menagerie.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
yeah.
Yeah. But so that's obviously but yeah, this is the problem. This is the prequel problem, is a lot of these characters, there's no stakes because we know where they're going to go, we know where they're going to end up. I mean, even Pike knows where he's going to end up because of Discovery. And I think that that's part of what I actually get. I have the feeling that that's what Anson Mount is playing when he does like his hesitation at the end. I think he's playing a man that knows his future but doesn't know how it's going to affect his decisions, going to affect his crew in the here and now. And I kind of like that, but yes.
So can I say I recognize I'm pretty down on this episode, but I do want to see the next episode, and then that will affect, I think, my rating, right? Like, because I think it's hard to judge this picture when it's only the front half, you know?
No, exactly. Now, I mean, and I do want to talk about, sort of what a mixed bag this whole season has been, but I feel that that's maybe a topic of conversation for
different show,
a round table. And I want to talk about some technology stuff as well, but again, that feels like a round table thing. One of the things I will say, though, is, which I found quite interesting, because this seems to me to be what they're doing. The thing I've been quite surprised about is how many legacy characters we've been getting in this show, and I do think it's a little bit of a missed opportunity. They're doing the kind of fan service thing, showing us these characters, sort of in the years before we know them. But they could have been introducing a whole load of new characters that we don't know the fates of and stuff, which arguably would have been a better move. But the thing they seem to be leaning into, which I find somewhat interesting, is the fact that when Kirk eventually takes over command of the Enterprise from Fleet Captain Pike or whatever. It's actually like he's inheriting most of his crew. I mean, obviously, if we are going with proper things that happened in the original series, he brings with him Gary Mitchell to be his first officer before Spock. And obviously, eventually, he brings on Dr. McCoy, although there is a different doctor before that. But we've absolutely got Scotty there at that point. Scotty was in Where No Man Has Gone Before. So is Sulu, although he's not a helmsman in that original episode. Obviously, Spock is there. So, but the fact that, we've also got that, and we've got Nurse Chapel and Uhura and Mbenga and all this, it's almost like, because Kirk's met a lot of these people now and seems to get on with them. It's almost like he inherits a lot of the crew and then obviously brings in new crew members as well. But they seem to be leaning into that more than it's, well, Pike hands over the Enterprise and pretty much it's a new crew apart from, Spock or whatever. They've sort of lent into that. So, and obviously I just realized as well, of course, we've got Gary Mitchell, but we've also got a Jenna Mitchell at the helm in this season at the moment. The one that sits next to
Oh, is that Jenna Mitchell?
Yeah, that's the character's name, played by Rong Fu, according to IMDb. But yeah, I don't know. Sorry, that's more of a comment, a bit of an observation. What are your thoughts on that?
I think you're right. Like, it goes to something that I think we've touched on, which is that it's weird that they keep bringing Kirk into this storyline, and so they're doing that, and it does sort of take away from, I think, maybe a little bit of Kirk's management style, right? Or you lose a little bit of that swashbuckling character. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it's an odd decision because it doesn't add depth or value, I think. But here they are doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, I must admit, I've already said I wish they weren't using Kirk so much, and that's nothing against Paul Wesley at all as an actor, but I just rather they didn't. but I think Anson Mount said it because there'd been, obviously I've read quite a bit after we record our episodes, and one of the things I read about the fact that Pike wasn't featured a lot in the earlier episodes. That's partly because in his personal life, Anson Mount has started a family, had a newborn, and wanted to spend a bit more time with that, with his new daughter or son. I can't remember what they had, but wanted to spend more time with his newborn. But he also said that the show is not about Captain Pike. The show is about the Enterprise and the 5-year mission of the Enterprise before Kirk takes over. So, which I thought was fair comment.
Fair comment.
Yeah.
Sure.
And I like Anson Mount. I like the fact that there's a, there's an actor of my age group that's a lead in a show like this. But but yeah, I think anything else that I've got to say about this season in general is probably best left for a retrospective. But this episode, I kind of enjoyed it. I'm just frustrated that it's going to be a long time before we get the resolution to the cliffhanger. You know what I mean? Oh, I think I've lost Pete a moment. It's good when we record these things live. I will try filling until he comes back. He's back on a different device. Hold on.
Sorry.
You've joined on a different device. There you go.
My other device just totally, the internet just crashed.
Right.
I
Okay.
joined it from the cell phone. Sorry.
Fair enough. Well, anything else you want to add before we get into our ranking of this then?
No, I'm sorry. My dropping sort of cut the conversation, but I think we've covered it.
Okay. All right. Well, let's have a look at our ranking system for this week. And so for this season finale, Pete, where are you this time?
I really did not enjoy it. I would like to reserve the right to raise my ranking after seeing the second part of this, but I'm going with Lieutenant Junior grade.
Oh, wow. Okay. Blimey. All right. Well, that's all right. Well, I was going to go. I mean, I didn't love it to the point. I don't think any episode this season has been a captain, unfortunately. But I think I will give this a commander, just because for me it was such a step forward from where
such a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, and how I'm feeling at the moment, I will give this a commander. It wasn't I'm just trying to think what my rank. I don't think have I given anything that high? I think my
so.
highest. Have I given a commander? See, this is where I should make a note of what I've said other weeks.
Well, you know what? Here's what I'll say. If we do the retrospective, I'll put together I'll compile the data.
Oh, thank you. That'd be great.
Yeah, I'll compile all the data. But I think that you and I both called one of the episodes that we both really enjoyed a commander.
Okay. All right. And we've had one ensign in this thing as well.
Yeah.
And a surprise. One episode was a real surprise for me, but again, I'll say that for the round table. So let's just open a channel then before we wrap this up.
So if you're listening, if you're watching this on YouTube, please do feel free to check out our podcast audio only version at LSWOT Cast on all good social medias. The Let's See What's Out There podcast, anywhere where you get your podcasts. And please do let us know what you're thinking. Send us an email. Maybe we'll talk about it on the retrospective show. lswotcast@gmail.com. I've been Pete Mealy. You can find me online at PMCMELE. Keith, where can people find more of you and your work?
Yeah, sure. Well, as I said, you're on this channel, so please check out some of our other work as well. It's not just streams about Star Trek. There's also other franchises, films, all sorts of things covered here under the live tab. If you go to the video tab, you will find reviews of physical media, technology unboxings, things of that nature. There is a playlist for Star Trek Blu-ray and 4K reviews, so check that out. Also, I also have another channel, British Isles, EYLES, as in my last name, and you can see some short films that I've made there, a little anthology series called The Urban Chiller Tales, so please check that out. And I also want to give a shout out to Neil Myers, who does our theme music here. His work can be found at neilmyersmusic.com. So, like I said at the beginning of the show, please do put down in the comments if you want us to cover Star Wars Ahsoka in the same format on this channel. We'll be happy to do it if there's a appetite for it. Any other thoughts or whatever, anything you want us to add if we do a round table episode. But for now, thank you, Pete, for joining me on this journey for the last 10 weeks. Really appreciate it.
Keith. Yeah.
And we will see you all next time on
Let's See What's Out There.
Bye for now.